January 24th, 2013. From El Cajon, California, this is episode 11 of You Can Bet on That. Oh, it's time once again for You Can Bet on That, a podcast for the recreational gambler. Once again, I'm Mark Duvall, and I'm here with Dr. Mike.
Hello.
So, Mike, I was seeing where PokerStars have introduced something called Zoom Poker. And if you remember, I think you played this a little bit. On Full Tilt, they had something called Rush Poker.
Right. It's just a speeded up game.
Right. And this is what Zoom Poker is apparently at PokerStars. And how it works is you would be at a table, and as soon as you were done with the hand, either by folding or going to showdown and winning or losing, you immediately were sent to another table.
Right.
And man, I loved it. They got me back into internet poker.
Well, it's more exciting. And
it's more exciting, and you're not sitting there.
Right, sitting through a hand while some guy's trying to decide if he's going to call that bet.
I loved it because you could log in, immediately get on a table. Even in the past, before that, if you logged in, you had to find a table, wait, maybe for the blinds to come around to you.
Right.
But this, you could immediately get on a table, and then, man, as soon as you fold, you get another hand. So if you get like deuce 7 fold, you got another hand. I loved it. And then, of course, Black Friday and all the Full Tilt scandal. Well, PokerStars, which is, if internet poker ever comes back to the United States, PokerStars is going to be the company that does it.
Right.
Because they've made a deal with the Department of Justice to pay back all the Full Tilt people's money. And anyway.
It sounds to me like they're buying their way back into being the provider for America.
Yep, definitely.
Basically.
So if they do come back, I was really excited to hear, okay, good. If they come back, I can play at least something that was like Rush Poker, Zoom Poker.
Yeah. Now, when they start that at casinos, where just all the tables, just as soon as you're done with a hand, you can rush to another table.
Yeah.
You just grab all your chips, run over there.
That'll be the best.
I'm in.
You're dropping chips along the way, right? Sir, the action's not on you yet, right? You're actually taking your cards over to the other table.
They'll have to have some kind of conveyor belt system that takes your chair and actually moves you.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you're thinking. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah. Well, so I sent an email to Rincon. I wanted to ask them about their free play. We've kind of talked about this in the past.
Right.
When you get free play, when you get a promotion that's free play, typically you can get it in slot play or in table play. And when you get it in table play, they give you just little goofy chips that you cannot immediately take to the cashier and cash out.
You have to play them.
You have to play them at the table. And at most Caesars properties, certainly in Las Vegas.
Yeah, at Caesars Palace.
When you bet one of these goofy chips on the table, say it's like a $5 chip, if you win, well, if you lose, they just take the chip away, of course. But if you win, they pay off $5 and you still keep the goofy chip.
Right, which you can bet again.
Right? So theoretically, you could win an infinite amount of money.
Right.
Just
exactly.
one chip. Theoretically. So, but at Rincon, for some reason, those chips, when you lose, they take it, and they take it when you win.
They pay you and then take the goofy chip.
Right.
So they're exchanging your goofy chip for a real chip.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a huge difference.
Oh, it's huge.
Where they don't take it on a win, if you're betting, say, on the pass line on craps, and you bet, you have $100 worth of like $5 chips, in the long run, you're going to get that $100 back, or $98 of it, right? Because the house edge on the pass line. Right. But you're going to get virtually all the money back. When they take the goofy chip on the win, too, that cuts that in half.
Right. You're going to get like 40-something% back.
So I sent an email to Harrah. I said, at Rincon, when you use an even money free play chip at the table, the house takes away the chip whether the bet wins or loses. However, at every other Caesars property I've been to, the house only takes away the free play chip on losing bets. In other words, you can keep using it until it loses. This is a huge difference. Why is Rincon's policy so much worse than other Caesars properties? And more generally, why aren't policies like this universal amongst all Caesars properties? So I had to send that to like the top Caesars email person, and then they forwarded apparently to Rincon.
Oh, okay.
And so I finally did get, so I was thinking, what kind of a response am I going to get? It's probably just going to be something that doesn't make sense or blowing me off or whatever.
Yeah, like I told you, they're going to say that's our policy.
Right. And that's essentially what they did. Here's what I got back. So this came from Tracy Freeman, who's the games manager apparently at Rincon. First he, thanked me for writing, and then he said, all properties have different marketing strategies. We decided we wanted to go this route on our blackjack games. We have multiple promotions we use. We have blackjack tournaments, slot tournaments, and the play and chew promotion.
Okay. First of all, Tracy, for the life of me, I can't understand your response because basically you said that's your policy. Okay. But then you say on our blackjack games. I mean, I assume by that he means craps and all the other table games.
He said blackjack explicitly, but you could play it on any table game where it's an even money.
So I assume he meant to write table games. Right. And then we have multiple promotions used. Well, yeah, I know you do, but what does one promotion have to do with any other promotion?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, it's not really a good answer.
No, and it's kind of.
And what's weird is that you would think that a corporation would come out with a policy and it would be the same for all their, it'd be like, one McDonald's having the McRib sandwich, which is the best thing they've ever had on their menu.
And debatable.
Then other ones never having McRib sandwich. Right?
I guess it'd be like that. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. You think a corporate thing, they'd make a decision and they'd stick with it.
It is frustrating. Well, even when we were in Vegas at Caesars, remember there was a player there who was using one of those those free plays,
right.
And he was complaining because they were telling him one thing at Caesars and something else at Flamingo.
Right, that's right. Yeah, it was about
it was like betting on the field or something.
Right, on the field, and 2 and 12 came up. They paid double
and triple
at a one shift. Like the swing shift paid double and triple. But
on the free play.
On the free play.
Yeah.
Just like a regular bet would. But on another shift, like the morning shift or something, they were just paying even money.
Yeah, because technically this free play stuff is only good for even money bets. So yeah, even between shifts at the same casino, they couldn't get their story straight.
Right, and one shift paid one way and one shift paid another way.
Well, anyway, like I said, I didn't think we'd get a very good answer, and we didn't. And, we've talked about this before too. In this situation, you want to take the slot play because, if you have $100 in slot play, once you've played through that $100,
you can cash out.
You can cash out. And again, if you're playing like video poker, you should get about 98% of that back. So anyway, no resolution there, and I didn't think there would be.
What was funny is when they started that promotion, I immediately just used it on the pass line in craps because that's my game I play.
Right.
I didn't even really think about it. And initially when they had it, they did let you keep your chip.
They changed the policy.
They changed the policy for some reason, but once they changed it, I still played at craps until you mentioned, well, you really should, and it made sense. So now that's what we do.
We just go play the slot play on video poker for the free play.
Right.
And then take all that money
right.
and go play with the craps table, right?
Yeah. So in essence, it'd be the same if they just let people play it. Although you do see a lot of people using their goofy chips in the field.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, we still see it all the time.
Right.
The other funny thing about this response, too, he said, we have promotions such as play and chew promotion. Well, they call it play and choose. CHEWS. That's the joke, right? Is that play and choose. But he put play and chew. So the joke is...
Yeah.
It's his promotion.
Maybe Tracy Freeman is not the games manager at the.
Well, he's certainly not the restaurant. He doesn't know about the restaurant promotion. Who knows who we got this from? Yeah, maybe it was just some computerized response, right? And Tracy Freeman
it's just some guy in a basement somewhere.
That's right. Yeah. He's heard of some promotion,
right? And he used Tracy. That way, you don't know if asked for a guy or a girl.
That's true.
Whoever walks up.
That's smart. Yeah, they're smarter than we are. All right, so for our poker home game this week, we want to talk about a game called Pass the Buck. It is a 5-card stud game, so that means that you're going to have one down. Every player's going to have one down card and 4 up cards. And the way Pass the Buck works is like this. First, everybody gets dealt their down card. And then the player to the dealer's left gets an up card. And that player can choose to keep that up card or pass it to the player to his left. If he keeps it, then action just moves to the next player. If he passes his card to the player to his left, then he just gets a card off the top of the deck that he must keep.
Right.
And then the next player has the same decision to make. The first card that he's dealt, whether it came off the deck or it came from the player to his right, he decides whether he wants to keep it or not, or pass it to the player to his left.
Right.
And that goes around all the way around to the dealer, who also has the option of basically just discarding the card that he gets. He doesn't pass it to the guy to his left because
it's a dead card.
Yeah, it's a dead card because otherwise there could be a card that just keeps going around the table indefinitely. But the person at the dealer spot, he can either keep the card he gets or he just discards it and gets another one off the top of the deck.
Yeah.
And so play like this, and then there's a betting round, and then for the second card, the same deal, right? The first player can keep or pass along the card. And each of the 4 up cards are dealt like this. So typically you're going to have hands that are a little bigger than a typical 5-card stud game, because every person is going to have at least 2 cards
to
look at. It's kind of a fun game. When we play this at our home game, we pretty much always play it where the down card is wild, and all like it, and we play it high-low.
Right.
And that makes it very interesting because if you're playing a high-low, typically what you want to do, your down card is wild, so it could be anything. So for your first up card, almost everybody's looking for a low card. A wheel card.
A wheel card.
To try to go low initially.
Yeah, initially you want to go low.
Right.
In that game.
So if, we're playing that high-low with a wild card and suddenly someone has dealt a jack and he says, I'll keep the jack.
Yeah. You pretty much know they've got a jack
They've got a jack down. Either they don't know how to play,
right,
which we've seen too.
Yeah, right. There's 2 scenarios there. They don't know what they're doing.
Or it's like, why is he keeping a jack of all cards when it's, high-low like that? Then you can think, okay, he's got a jack down and he's got a wild card and I better watch out for what's happening. But I think that's the better way to play with the wild card and high-low.
Oh, yeah, it adds a lot more to it.
Then anything can happen. It's like, okay, I know that guy's got a wild card. Is it paired with one of his up cards and now he's got 4 of a kind or a monster straight flush? Is he only going low?
And your hand can change. You could start out going low.
Yeah.
And then end up going high and vice versa just because the way the cards come out.
That is kind of typical in games like that where it's high-low. You want to start just say, okay, I want to try to go low. And then maybe you back into a high.
Right.
Or, even to a scooping situation. I remember we were playing this game once at home. We're playing high-low, and I had a king down. And I was dealt a king. And I said, okay, I'll keep it. So everybody at the table knew that I had a king down, right? So Mark Heiser and his dad both stayed in, knowing that I probably had a king. Well, the next card I got was also a king. So I had 3 kings. I mean,
So you've got 4 of a kind guaranteed.
Right, because kings are wild for me.
And you've got 3 low cards, right? So if your next card was a 2, you've got 4 cards to the wheel.
Yep. And so Mark and his dad, stayed and kept calling. Anyway, I ended up getting like an ace and a deuce.
Oh, great.
To go with it. So anybody who's paying attention knows that I've got the wheel, because kings are wild. I've got ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, nut low. And I've got 4 aces. They finally, on the last card, Mark folded. But his dad stayed in to try to draw for a full house, for a straight flush. And he threw, I'm sorry, I left out one more rule. We had a rule in this game where he could draw a card at the end, too. Right. An extra card. I didn't draw a card, of course. Yeah. He stayed in to draw one more card to try to get to a straight flush, and he threw away the wrong card anyway.
Oh, God.
But anyway, it's just to kind of demonstrate that, if you're playing this high-low with a wild card, you can kind of get a read on people depending on what they hang on to.
Well, the good thing about that game, the thing I like the most about that game is it's one of those games where you can pretty much tell by the second card or at least by the third for sure, whether you're going to be in or not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Based on what you see other people doing and how they play. So, it's easier to read people, of course. But there are some twists and turns there. And sometimes, the last card they don't choose, they get dealt to them, and it's a jack.
And they were going low.
And it happens to pair up their jack underneath.
Oh,
so you really don't know.
Yeah,
you're thinking, okay, well, they got screwed up low. And then, sure enough, they've got the will because they had a jack underneath. How would you ever know that?
Right.
So there are some nuances there that make it interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good game. What else was I going to say about it? Typically, like you said, like the first two cards, you're going to know if you're in or not. But once everybody has two cards, if you've got a full table, chances are somebody has two wheel cards showing because you have so many opportunities to take
so they're going to either get trips at the minimum, they've already got trips, and they're probably going to get four of a kind.
Well, they don't automatically have trips if they just have two.
No, I mean if they had two. If they had paired up their
if they paired up. Well, sure.
Right.
Yeah. You got to really be scared of pairs.
Right.
And if somebody looks like they've got, a 7 high, chances are they do, right? Well, I mean, especially, the wild card, is going to be wild. So the question really becomes, did he pair his wild card?
Right.
That's what it comes down to, is you see 4 of his 5 cards and you got to say, okay, is one of the up cards, does it match, the wild card?
Right.
If it does, am I in trouble, or do I have him beat with a 7 high? Could he has a jack showing, but does he have a 6 high?
Right.
I have a 7 high. Do I say, it's a good game.
It's a good game.
All right. So this is going to be our last episode before the Super Bowl. So we thought we'd talk about some Super Bowl betting, and we're going to start with the survivor pool that Mike is in. Now, in our very first episode, if you go back to that very first episode where we're sitting in the kitchen and a table and the sound is terrible and we're not comfortable doing this and it just sucked.
Yeah.
We talked about survival football pools. And tell us about the survival pool again, Mike.
Okay, so in the survivor pool, you have to pick a team, one team each week that you think will win that week. If you pick a team and they lose, then you're out.
You're out of the pool for the whole season.
You're out of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone has put in a certain amount of money prior to the beginning. And the winner, the last man standing, is going to get all the money. The catch is you cannot use a team twice.
In the season. So once you've picked a team, you can't use
them in the regular season. Yeah. So, once you've used Baltimore, next week if Baltimore's heavily favored, you can't use them. So it gets to a point where you've used all the really good teams, the teams that, generally are going to have good records and win. Yep. So towards the end, you have to pick a few teams that may not have a winning record even for the season, but you think that they'll win that week.
Yeah.
So in essence, with the 17-week football season, you've got to pick 17 different teams out of the 30 teams.
So you went the entire season.
So I went the entire season, the entire regular season without missing. And another person in the pool. Now, in this pool, there's probably about, I'd say, between 50 and 60, I didn't count them, people in the pool.
Uh-huh.
And the previous year, the year before, I think the whole thing was over before halfway through the season.
And that makes sense. That seems more reasonable.
Because, usually it's like one week, some teams heavily favored. A large majority of people pick that team, and they get upset.
Right. Yeah.
So like week 2, a bunch of people go out because, they took New England to beat, Detroit or something, and they lost.
Yeah. Right.
So, but for whatever reason, me and one other person have made it all the way through the regular season.
So at the end of the regular season, it was just 2 of you?
Just the 2 of us left.
Okay.
There were 3 of us left.
3 of you.
3 of it at the end of the regular season.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
And one person was eliminated in the second week of the playoffs.
Well, let's talk about how the playoffs work. So you both get to the end, and I just figured since there were 3 of you, they'd split it. Yeah.
Right. Well, it turns out there are rules, and this is, I think, a Yahoo. It's through Yahoo.
Oh, okay. The sports.
They use their setup.
Right. Okay.
And one of their rules in there was, well, if it's tie at the end of the regular season, you go into the playoffs. Now, the thing about the playoffs is you can use, it's like starting over almost.
Right.
So every team's alive. That first week.
The first week, every team's alive.
Yeah. Every team that's playing that week's alive. So if you've used Baltimore already, for instance, you could still use them in the playoffs.
Okay. Right.
Okay. But once you use them in the playoffs, you can't use them again.
So you can't use them again in the playoffs.
In the playoffs.
That seems brutal because,
It is
during
brutal.
the regular season, teams aren't eliminated.
Right. Exactly. It is brutal because all of a sudden, let's say you picked New England in week 1 and they won that game. Well, next week they could be heavily favored, but you can't use them again, and your choice is only the other team, right?
Right, yeah.
So when you get to the Super Bowl, you're hoping that one of your teams is still alive. You haven't
picked one of the teams that made it to the Super Bowl.
Right, because you could have used them earlier in the playoffs.
That's rough, yeah.
So it turns out that in week 1, the three of us, all three picked winners.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then week 2 comes, and one guy was eliminated.
Okay.
Because I believe he had Denver, and Denver was upset by Baltimore.
Right. Okay. So then going into the so then there are 2 of you alive.
2 of us
going
alive.
into the conference championship weekend. 2
Right.
games left.
2 games left.
Right.
In the NFC, it was San Francisco and Atlanta.
Right.
I hadn't used either of those teams.
Mm-hmm.
In the AFC, it was New England and Baltimore.
Right.
And I hadn't used either of those teams.
Well, you'd used New England already.
Had I used New England?
Yeah, because
I used New England the first week.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
The first, the week before, not
Right.
the first week,
Not
but
the week before.
the second week.
So your choices at this point are Baltimore, Atlanta, or San Francisco.
Exactly.
And I believe
And the person going against me, it's a woman. Her choices were also the same.
Okay.
She had used New England, so she had to take Baltimore, San Francisco, or Atlanta.
Okay.
She went with San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
which was the she couldn't use New England. They were a 9-point favorite. New
Right,
England was.
right.
San Francisco was a favorite in the NFC, so
They're
she
like a
went
4-point
with
favorite.
4-point favorite.
Mhm.
So she went with them.
Yeah.
I decided to go with Baltimore, even though they were a 9-point underdog, because I figured, then I still have a team left for the Super Bowl if New England wins. Because if New England had won
Right.
and San Francisco had won, because I had already used New England, then in the Super Bowl I have no team to pick.
Right. If you had picked San Francisco this last week,
Right.
and New England had won,
Right.
then both New England and San Francisco go to the Super Bowl. You have no team.
I
to
have
pick.
no team to
gotcha.
pick.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm out. And I knew she was in the same problem. I mean, she had the same issues. She got lucky because she picked San Francisco and not
Yeah.
Atlanta, and they won.
Right.
And even though they were down by 17, it was 17-0 start.
Yeah, you're
in
right.
the first
I know,
quarter.
it came back.
So, but I went with Baltimore, and I got lucky too because they happened to win.
Right. So both the teams win. So now you're both
So
going to
we're
the Super Bowl.
both going to the Super Bowl, and I have not used San Francisco, so I can still use them.
Right.
And she has not used Baltimore, so she can use them.
Right.
So that's what it's going to be.
So that's what it comes down to. So if San Francisco wins, you'll win the survivor pool, the whole thing, and if Baltimore wins, then she will.
She will.
And that's
Which is good. I like that it's going to be one winner.
yeah, I can. understand
even if
that.
I'm the loser, I'd like that there's one winner.
We know what you should do since you will win. I don't know how much money it is, but say it's a couple $100.
Yeah, it's several hundred.
Okay, so if you're guaranteed to win at no risk, if San Francisco wins, you should just make a bet on Baltimore. Straight up to win,
Right.
and then you're guaranteed just bet like $100 on Baltimore.
I
and then
would
you're-
if I was going to Vegas this week or
There's
next.
no place to bet sports here in town unless we go down to Tijuana.
Tijuana.
That's, I don't like doing that. Yeah.
Well, I don't. I think making a few bucks and risking your life in Tijuana is not the smartest thing in the world.
Well, that's Mike's survivor pool. Let's talk a little bit about Super Bowl wagering and maybe football wagering in general. So we've been talking about point spreads. I think most listeners probably are familiar with how point spreads work. Right now, the last I looked, the 49ers for the Super Bowl are like between 3.5 and 4-point favorites.
I think it started at 4 and it's down to 3.5.
Yeah,
on
it's
most
moving down.
lines.
Yeah. So what that means is if you bet the 49ers as 4-point favorites, you will win the bet if the 49ers win by more than 4 points. You'll lose the bet if the 49ers lose outright or if they win by fewer than 4 points.
Right.
And that's how the point spread works.
Yeah, and if it's 4 points exactly, it's a push.
It's a push. Yeah,
So
you get
this
your money
last
back.
weekend, San Francisco beat Atlanta by
4 points,
and they
yeah.
were favored
It was
by 4.
probably a push,
So it
yeah.
was a lot of pushing.
Well, that's one of the reasons sometimes the point spreads go to half points, like 3.5. Then
Right.
it's
Then it's
guaranteed.
guaranteed.
There won't be a tie. And then if you were to bet on, again, the 49ers are 4-point favorites. If you were to bet on the Ravens, you would win if the Ravens won outright. You'd also win if they lost by less than 4 points.
Right.
And then you'd lose if the 49. So it's basically one side or the other. So how does the casino make money on this? Well, they don't pay even money on these bets. They basically pay 11 to 10. That means for every $10 you bet, if you win, you'll get your $10 back. Excuse me. You bet $11.
Right.
You bet $11. So if you win, you'll get your $11 back plus $10 in winning.
Right.
Instead of $11.
Right. So they take what's called the vig.
Right. So that way, if they can get people to bet on both sides of the point spread, an equal number of people to bet on the Ravens as bet on the 49ers, they're guaranteed to make money.
Right. They can't lose.
They can't lose because they're winning on this.
And that's why, and this is one thing that a lot of people don't understand. Remember, Gary didn't quite understand that that's why the point spread changes. They're trying to get people to bet. It doesn't necessarily mean that they think this team's going to win.
Right.
They're just trying to get the money spread out evenly so they can guarantee themselves a win.
That's right. That's why you will see point spreads change, sometimes significantly when it comes to like the Super Bowl, because most people are only betting on one. They're only betting for one team. And so the casinos adjust the point spread to try to get more action on the other side.
Like right now, you've seen the point spread go from 4 to 3.5. And I think that a lot of that is because everybody was betting on Baltimore.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
They won 2 games. They were big underdogs. And everyone's like, oh, they're going to do it again. It's their year.
Yeah.
So all the money was going on Baltimore. The casino needs some people to bet on San Francisco.
Yep.
So they've adjusted down, giving away fewer points, hoping people will say, well, yeah, San Francisco can win.
Yep, I think you're right. Now, one nice thing about betting on sports like on football like this is if you make your wager when the point spread is 4, you're locked into that bet. Even if the point spread moves at the casino after that, you get the point spread that you bought your ticket at. Now, that's different from, say, horse racing, parimutuel,
Right.
where the odds change and, it's at post time. That's where the odds that you're going to get paid off. With the point spread can move, but once you've bought your ticket and it says on there 4 points, you're locked in and it stays that way.
The great thing about that is that allows you to do certain things, like we've got an example of, where you can make other bets based on what you got your money the first time.
Right. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about this. Let's talk about the money line bet in football. Now, instead of a point spread, you can bet that straight up that a team will win. And in that case, you bet the money line. And here's how the money line works. Last time I looked at the money line, the Ravens were plus 155 and the 49ers were minus 175. So what does that mean? That means that if you bet $100 on the Ravens and they win at plus 155, when they win, you'll get your $100 back and you'll get $155 on top of that. The 49ers are at minus 175. What does that mean? That means that if you bet $175 on the 49ers to win, and they win, you'll get the $175 back and $100 additional.
Right.
Right? So the favorite is always a minus amount. The underdog is always a plus amount.
Yeah. How they come up with these numbers, that's...
Again, it's something that they set. Now, I've been watching this, too. This has been going down, too. The Ravens, certainly, I saw at least were at 160 at one point, and that's dropped. And I'll tell you, Mike, I don't know about you, but we're not sports bettors. I mean, we do every once in a while, but it's not like we, follow it real closely.
It's very haphazard thing.
Right. We're recreational gamblers, everybody. But it seems to me this money line bet on the Ravens is the bet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Bet $10 to make 15 or $100 to make 155. I think that's the way to go because they could very easily win.
Oh, very easily win.
So why bet the point spread where you're betting 11 to win 10?
Right.
When they're probably going to win.
Depending on what kind of money you're betting.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were betting very large amount of money, of course you might want to go with the points. But if somebody's going to bet $100, you just bet the money line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pick, you're a Ravens fan. You've got $100. Bet the money line.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Well, plus there are also a ton of other proposition bets that you can make for the Super Bowl. If you go into a casino, you'll see, things that are pretty silly, like, what's the coin toss going to be?
Right.
Who's going to score the first touchdown? Will the first score be a field goal or a touchdown? You can bet on all sorts of things, and the casinos set their odds at different rates.
Yeah, I wonder who does that. I know they have a bookmaker that
I bet
tries to figure stuff out.
They probably make quite a bit of money on bets like that, because the serious sports bettors aren't going to be betting certainly the coin toss, right? But somebody visiting from Minnesota might say, I'm going to bet that heads comes up. Who knows?
What's the money line on the coin toss? Well,
for heads it's plus 180, right? For tails it's minus 210. I don't know why
they always call heads. The guy always calls heads. Well, remember when they messed up in that one Super Bowl?
Was it a Super Bowl? Was it a
playoff game?
I think it was a playoff game.
Was it a playoff game? I know it was after the regular season.
It was a playoff game. I remember seeing it.
Yeah, and the guy called one thing and the referee said the other. Yeah. And they just stuck with that. And the guy's like, no, I said heads.
And they changed the rule after that, so they don't call it in the air anymore.
Right. They got to call it beforehand, discuss it, have a big discussion about
heads, right?
Yeah.
With
everyone in agreement? It's going to be heads. All the referees huddle up. I think he called heads.
That's right. We've decided they've called heads. The guy's, no.
Oh, that was so silly. I don't know. It's probably a minor point, really. Here's another thing. This is off gambling for a second.
Yeah.
If you're the team and you win the toss, kick the ball away and take it in the second half. It makes way more sense.
That's what a lot of teams are doing now.
There's finally.
I know. I agree.
Paul and I have been saying that for 25 years. Yep. Kick the ball away, take it in the second half.
They're finally doing that this year. I know. I agree. I
mean, if you're behind, you want the ball in the second half. If you're ahead, you want the ball to bury the other team.
Exactly.
I mean, the first kick of the game, I
agree. Well, a lot of teams are doing that now. And I think Baltimore's consistently doing it.
Yeah. The Harbaugh brothers probably both are.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So talking about these money lines, sometimes these money lines will present situations for bettors that are rare but very profitable. And something like this happened back when the Chargers and the 49ers went to the Super Bowl. Now, first of all, Mike and I, we live here in the San Diego area. We're diehard Chargers fans. They've really given us nothing but heartache.
Agreed.
It's just awful.
Yeah.
And but they went to the Super Bowl one year
on a miracle.
They really did. They kind of limped their way in. It wasn't like they powered their way in.
Right. It boiled down to one play against Pittsburgh, right?
Yep. And
they just luckily tipped the ball.
But anyway, they went to the Super Bowl, and it was 49ers and Chargers, and the 49ers were 18.5-point favorites going into that game.
Turns out it was a little low.
But still, for an NFL game, any NFL game, Super Bowl or otherwise, 18, that's unheard of. I mean, when you get to like 14 points, 2 touchdowns, that's a big...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In your survival pool, that's the team you want that's favored by 14, right?
But the 49ers were 18.5-point favorites. Now, the money lines on that were also pretty outrageous. Now, I don't remember specifically what the money lines were, but I'm going to use some examples to show how you could have been guaranteed to win money if you made a wager on this Super Bowl. So when the lines were first established, when the teams were announced, when they won their championship games and 49ers and Chargers were going in, let's say that the Chargers were at like plus 800 and the 49ers were at minus 1,000. Those aren't the exact figures, but it's probably close enough, and it's good for this example of how this would work. So that means that if you bet on the Chargers, if you bet $100 on the Chargers, you'd win 800. And if you bet $1,000 on the 49ers, you'd win 100. Okay? Well, as the week went on, the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, both of these numbers came down dramatically. Why? Because nobody wanted to lay that much money on the 49ers.
Right.
Instead, they wanted to bet on the Chargers and hope to make a big profit.
Right,
now,
sure.
When I say they, I mean everybody, right? I'm not talking about smart sports gamblers. That's one thing about the Super Bowl is it brings out everybody.
Right.
Right? So, I want to make a bet on the Super Bowl. I've never bet on sports before.
This weekend, everyone who goes to Vegas will probably make a bet on the Super Bowl.
Right.
And they may not even know anything about football.
Exactly.
They're just like, I'm going to put $10 on the 49ers, right?
Right. So people were just betting on the Chargers, certainly on the money line.
Yeah.
So the money line came down and down and down. Well, finally, when it's close to kickoff, now the Chargers were down to plus 400 and the 49ers were at minus 600. Again, these are, I can't remember the exact figures, but this was close enough. So what happened was, at the beginning of the 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, the Chargers were at plus 800. Now, before the Super Bowl starts, right before, the 49ers are at minus 600. So what does that mean? That means that if you had bet on the Chargers, say $100, when the lines first came out, you will win 800 if the Chargers win. Now, right before the Super Bowl, you can bet $600 on the 49ers to win 100.
Yeah, the 100 you would have lost betting on the Chargers.
So now if you made those two bets, if the Chargers win, you win the $800 and you lose the $600 that you bet on the 49ers, your profit is $200.
$200.
If the 49ers win, you lose the $100 you bet on the Chargers and you win $100 that you bet on the 49ers. You break even.
Right. So you can't lose.
Can't lose.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you would think somebody with lots of money would go in and put, $1 million on the Chargers and $6 million on the.
This kind of situation doesn't come up too much. I was hoping it'd come up this Super Bowl, but no such luck on this. But if different teams had made it,
different teams had made it, maybe. But with Baltimore being big underdogs and winning both games, I think that's what kept it close.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, you have to be a smart enough sports bettor to recognize that something like this is going to happen. It's called sports betting scalping or an arbitrage when something like this happens, where you're kind of guaranteed to at least break even or make some money. Yeah. So you'd have to be a smart bettor and anticipate something like this.
Right.
You better be pretty sure that, okay, this money line is way too high. It's going to come down. I'm going to make a bet right away.
Yeah.
And then hope that it comes down.
In this case, though, in this example, you would think, though, that a lot of people would have just went ahead and put their $100 on the Chargers off the bat. And even if it didn't change, they're figuring, it's $100. What the heck? I'm going to bet the 49ers later or,
Sure.
something like that.
Sure.
So then you think when it did come down, they'd be like, oh my gosh, here's my opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, you could almost back into that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see. Well, really, if this ever happens again, and it's championship weekend and, we see the two teams go in and we know that's going to happen, we got to go make some sports bets.
Yeah,
we got to get it.
Well, that'd be worth a trip to Vegas.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Especially if the Chargers ever get in, because it'd probably be the same.
Yeah, it'd probably be the exact same thing.
Situation.
Actually, what we could probably do is just put our life savings against the Chargers, and then we're good.
And we're probably good.
I think we're good.
I'll tell you what, San Diego teams, nothing but heartbreak.
That's all sports across the board.
Yeah, I mean, and if they do happen to make it into a championship game, the Padres the first year in '84 they're going against a team that's just a juggernaut that year.
Yep, they go 0-4.
They go 0-4.
They won one game.
They won one game in that one. They went 0-4 the second time against the Yankees, who people will argue that was the best Yankee team of all time. I've heard people make that argument. I mean, so the two times we get there, we're playing juggernauts. We're not playing a team that limped in.
Yeah.
And then the Chargers make it, and they're going up against probably one of the best NFL teams ever. I mean, that was Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, and
so we've made it to the big game 3 times between those sports, and we've been embarrassed each time. So.
Literally embarrassed.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about one more Super Bowl bet, something that you see at Super Bowl parties and is a little more informal and very random, but it's very popular, and that is the 100 square pool. Here's the way it works. If anybody, probably a lot of our listeners are already familiar with this and taken part in this before, but usually what happens if you go to a party or somebody will set this pool up, they make 100 square grid on a piece of paper, big enough where people can sign in on each one of the squares. And what you do is you sell each of the squares for a certain amount of money, say 25 cents a square, $1 a square, something like that.
$500 a square.
Yeah, that I heard can happen. Maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, you sell each of these squares to people. Now, people can buy multiple squares, just one, however, a whole line of squares, whatever they want. But as they buy the squares, typically you have them like put their name in it or sign their name in it. Once you've filled up all the squares, and let's say it was $1 a square, so now you have a $100 pool. Once all the squares have been sold, you put, say, the Baltimore on, say, the top axis, and you put the San Francisco on the vertical axis. And then you randomly assign each row the numbers 0 through 9, and you randomly assign each column the numbers 0 through 9. And typically you do this by just putting like 0 through 9 in a hat and pull them out of a hat or whatever.
Let somebody impartial pull them out.
But it needs to be random. You just don't want to go like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 because it's a random pool. So then now you've got on the top, you've got Baltimore and the numbers 0 through 9 on those columns. And on the side, you've got the 49ers and 0 through 9 on those rows. Those numbers represent the ones digit in the team's score. And whoever is in the square representing those one digits in the score at the end of the game wins the pool. Mm-hmm. So let's say that the final score is 21-17 Baltimore. Then whoever had the 1 on the Baltimore column and the 7 in the San Francisco row, whoever has that square wins the pool. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, typically they divide it by quarters.
Right. Typically you don't give away the whole thing to the winner.
Yeah, you'll give like maybe
10% for like the first quarter, and then like 25% for the half,
and another 10 for the third or something, and then
the rest of it
whatever you decide you want to do.
Yeah, that's usually the way it goes. Yeah. And the nice thing,
so you get four winners. You could get four individual
distinct winners, right?
Yeah, you could have the same score halftime and
sure. If nobody scores in a certain quarter,
right?
Then
so the same person could win more than once.
Yeah, yeah. That's a very popular pool. Very easy to put together as long as you have 100. Or not 100 people, but at least people who are willing to buy 100 squares between them.
Yeah, a lot of times if you make the pool, if you're going to have a Super Bowl party and you've got 30 people coming over, if you sell them for a quarter a piece or $1 a piece, you'll sell 100 because people will buy, give me 10 squares.
Right, and fill it up. And you've even done it sometimes where you'll have, okay, here's a 25-cent pool.
Right.
Here's a 50 cent, here's a $1, so you can be involved in that.
Yeah, and sometimes the person running it, like when I did one, I just took whatever was left over. So if I sold 60 of the squares, then I had 40 of them.
And you just bought the rest.
Just bought the rest.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. Good. Yeah. So are you in any of these pools then, a 100-square pool?
Yeah, I'm in 3 of them.
Okay.
Actually. And I've heard this is strictly illegal.
Yeah, this is when it's one thing when you're playing with 25 cent, and everybody's over at your house, but when some of these get pretty.
So I'm in a couple that aren't real big. They're like $50 a square, which is still,
that's a lot. Well, yeah, $5,000.
Still
right?
$5,000 in the pool. But my cousin has a friend who runs a pool where they put $500 a square in.
Jeez.
And he has no problem selling them.
That's scary.
He worked with my cousin in the military.
Okay.
So a lot of them are military people, the friends over the years.
You'd have to know the people that were,
right. Yeah.
Involved in it.
And he only takes cash.
Jeez.
Because, he doesn't want anyone writing a check or anything. And it's very, they put their money, they pay the guy. I wouldn't want to be the guy holding $50,000
just sitting
in cash.
Around. Yeah, me either. Oh my gosh.
From what my cousin has told me, he takes it, puts it in the bank.
Yeah.
And then when the people win after Super Bowl, he makes a day where he meets them all at the bank and withdraws his $50,000 and just pays them. But I think the way he works it, he does, if I remember correctly, 10,000 first quarter, 10,000 halftime, 10,000 third quarter, and then 20,000 for the final.
Yeah.
So you spend $500, you could win 10,000.
Well, here we're amazed, but there are probably some people who do it for even more.
Oh, right? I'm sure there. I'm sure there are ones that are $1,000 a square or something. Yeah. One thing about that, the $500, that's a lot of money. And if you're going to buy one, I mean, I wouldn't want to, give me 5 squares, right? Right. I mean, you take one. So you have one chance in 100
right.
of winning.
Yeah.
And when they draw the numbers, if your numbers are 5, 8,
right. Chances are
you're like, okay, you want 3, 0,
7,
7, 4, 7, 1.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want
typical scores.
You don't typically want 2.
Right. You typically don't want 2. You don't
5,
want 8.
Not really 8. Yeah.
But funny thing is, I was driving to work this morning and I was thinking to myself, if you've looked at the over-under for this Super Bowl, it's 50 points, I think.
Is it?
It's
Okay.
like
I didn't look at
49 or 50 points. So they're expecting a high-scoring game.
Yeah.
So in this case, maybe 8-5 wouldn't be so bad. 35-28,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Something
it could
like
be,
that.
Sure.
That's I mean, it could
reasonable.
be
Yeah.
high scoring enough that you might want some higher numbers. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, that's true.
because the only way 5 usually hits is a 35.
35,
right?
maybe a 15, but
maybe
that's
a
like
15,
only
that's-
field goals, right? Or
Yeah,
something like
or
that.
something goofy happens.
Yeah, but you're right. 35. It's gotta be
15, 25, usually you never see.
No.
35,
Yeah.
which is why some people have that during the year they have the 33 pool.
right,
Where if any team, you pick teams, and if any team scores 33 points, you
your
win.
team, yeah,
you win the pool
because it's an odd score.
because it's an odd score, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, anyway, everybody enjoy the game, and that's going to do it for this episode. As usual, visit our website, youcanbetonthat.com, where you can check out our show notes and leave comments. Also, follow us on Twitter, @youcanbetonThat, or you can email us with questions and comments. Our email address is youcanbetonThat@gmail.com. Mike, any final words?
No, I just encourage people, send us some questions. Love to answer them.
Yep, we'd love to answer your gambling questions. And we're out of the bathroom. We'll see everybody next time.
See you later.